All right, ladies and gentlemen, feds and degenerates, cuckolds of all ages, it's that time. Little bonus stream here on Mild's Culture Plate. We're gonna check out. I've kind of said that I might do a bonus stream at some point this week. I had a free hour while I'm waiting to go to the gym. Gonna be running to the gym pretty soon. So I'm gonna get right into it. One of the reasons I stopped covering these Tucker Carlson uh, videos is because he started making them like 3 and 4, and now it's apparent. It seems like he's doing it every day, and each one is super important. So for me to cover like all the important Tucker Carlson videos, like I would have to like literally, I'd have to do it every day, or I'd have to have like a 5 hour stream. And but the Gonzalo Lira, this one was kind of, I think it kind of provides some context to everything that's been going on in Ukraine. And so after the father of Gonzalo Lira interview here, I may also do his latest video, Tucker Carlson's latest video, where uh, he interviews Owen Schroyer, who recently got out of jail on January 6th related charges. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Let me present and share screen here. I want you to see, so there was a community note on this. So, we're obviously this is going to be pretty critical of Ukraine and the Biden administration, just by the timestamps here. But down here, there's a community note. There is no evidence that any torture has taken place. This individual was arrested for breaking Ukrainian laws against revealing the positions of Ukrainian forces for obvious security reasons. When present in a foreign country, you must follow their laws. And if you click it, you get SBU responds to Musk's comments on arrest of pro blogger Lira. This is Yahoo News, mirror of the new voice of Ukraine. So obviously, Ukraine state media stuff. Ukrainian law enforcement actions carried out in according with the laws. Security Service said in a comment regarding to Envy regarding Elon Musk's Twitter comments on the arrest of pro-Russian blogger Gonzalo Lira. Lira, who holds dual citizenship of Chile and the United States, was arrested in Kharkiv Oblast for promoting Russian aggression in Ukraine and spreading pro-Kremlin ideas on social media. Read also, Ukrainian traitor that passed sensitive military info to assassinated blogger, arrested in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. An investigation found that Lira's video denied Russian war crimes and justified Russian aggression. Lira claimed Ukraine was shelling its own territory and a neo-Nazi regime ruled the country. Such activities constitute a criminal offense under Article 436-2 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. The SBU documented Lira's activities and served the blogger with a notice of suspicion. In May 2023, the court imposed on him a preventative measure in the form of detention with the possibility of bail. He was initially released on house arrest after posting bail, but was arrested again in July when he attempted to cross the border into Hungary on his motorcycle. Lira is currently being held at the Kharkiv pre-trial detention center. His court hearing is scheduled for 12th of December and the 21st, so that's today. U.S. billionaire and CEO, Tesla CEO Elon Musk demanded an explanation from Ukrainian President Zelensky for the detention of the Moscow-aligned blogger Gonzalo Lira's Ukraine SBU security service in an ex-post on December 10th. Tusk made his demand in response to an ex-post by former Fox TV host Tucker Carlson, who accused Ukrainian authorities of torturing Gonzalo Lira in a Ukrainian prison since July for the crime of criticizing Zelensky. Okay, so let's go back to the video. And meanwhile, I'm going to start the video, but meanwhile, I'm going to get... By the way, I'm not drinking whiskey, but cheers to Julian Delfiki in the chat for showing up. I'm eating tacos, so I won't be typing, but okay, cool. You don't have to type. we'll keep this rolling. I'm going to go ahead and start the video so we can have the audio going. But in the background, I'm going to Google and see if there's any update on Gonzalo since he was supposed to be in court today. So, yeah, cheers to Julian. And we'll get this going.
In February of 2022, the Russian military rolled across the border of eastern Ukraine. And then for the next year and a half, the American media and political establishment spent, what's fair to say, a disproportionate amount of time talking about Ukraine and America's obligation to support Ukraine and pay for Ukraine's military and its government, and of course support it morally, and above all to hate Russia. And most Americans obeyed. Politicians wore Ukrainian flags on their lapels. American citizens put Ukrainian flags on their mailboxes and on their bumper stickers. But one thing most Americans didn't get a lot of was actual news from Ukraine. What was it like to live there? What was happening inside that country that we were supporting and paying for? Well, you couldn't really know because there's virtually no coverage of it. But on social media, there were a few people reporting in what seemed like a pretty honest way from within Ukraine. And one of them was an American citizen called Gonzalo Lira. He lived in Ukraine for quite some time, and he posted, particularly on Twitter, his accounts of what life was like there and his view of how the war was going. And so for people who are interested in what was happening, he was worth watching. Here's one of his reports.
The Russian economy is sailing on, sailing on. European economy, people are starting to die of hypothermia in the UK because they don't have access to the cheap energy of Russia from before. See? And so everything that the West has thrown at the Russians has boomeranged right back at them. And so now they're panicking and they're trying to figure out a way out of this situation. And they figure that if they throw more tanks, it'll help. It won't help. The Ukrainians, rather, they had like something like 2,000 tanks before the start of this conflict.
Does this sound like he's revealing troop locations?
Because those 2,000 tanks are gone. That's basic, you know? And so what, a couple of hundred, maybe 300 tanks, is that going to change the outcome of the conflict? No, it won't. The Russians are just going to destroy them. In the West, all of the propaganda has said that Zelensky is a hero, a Winston Churchill figure, and the Kiev regime are
and no, I'm not seeing any updates on his court case,
by the way. They're bloodthirsty murderers, the Kiev regime. I'm telling you right now.
So he made a couple of points. One, Russia is not losing the war with Ukraine. Russia is winning. Two, the Russian economy, despite the sanctions from the United States and Western Europe, and despite the war, has not been destroyed. The Russian economy is actually fine, and in some ways it's improving. It's becoming more independent, more commodities-based, and that's an advantage for a country with a lot of commodities like Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S. economy and U.S. military power has suffered as a result of the war. Now, Lira, to the extent that people responded to him in this country, in our media, was denounced as a Russian puppet and a liar and a propagandist. But in fact, now we can admit he was right. What you just heard was true, factually true. Russia is not losing the war in Ukraine. Russia is winning. Russia's economy is fine. Ours is not. So what happened to Gonzalo Lira? Well, for posting that video and others like it, he was arrested by the government of Ukraine, the one that we pay for.
Really, he was arrested for quote-unquote Russian propaganda
against the autocracy of Russia. He was arrested.
But telling the truth is propaganda in
and then he tried to leave the country.
The West of lies here.
Here's a video, his last video. This is Gonzalo Lira.
The globalist world of lies.
I will definitely be sent to a prison labor camp where I will most certainly die. And so I decided that the smart thing was take my chances in terms of getting across the border. Right now, I'm maybe...
Okay, I'm going to pause this real quick. This was one of the dumbest ideas he ever had, was filming this video. I mean, there were other borders he could have crossed, but he decided to, cut across country on his motorcycle and cross the Hungarian border, and then tell the world he was going to do so on the internet.
5 kilometers away from the border with Hungary. Over the last 2 days, I rode my bike just about 1,300 kilometers from Kharkov all the way here to the border. And my intention is to cross the border.
He should have waited till he got across the border to film this.
Get to Hungary, And in Hungary, I'm going to ask for political asylum. So either I will cross the border into Hungary in the next
Or
couple
set
of
this
hours,
up as
or I will be arrested again.
or he should have set this up as a, you know, upload to be to go live later. It's like, you know, by the time you see this, I should have posted a follow-up video or something like that, something along those lines. You know, kind of like a kill switch type of thing where it's like, you know, it will automatically go live regardless. But if he gets across the border and gets to safety, then he can cancel the upload and upload his own different video. But this was just dumb, going live, broadcasting his location to the government.
And God knows what will happen to me.
He never made it. 5 miles from the Hungarian border, 5 kilometers rather, from the Hungarian border, he was arrested. Gonzalo Lira remains in prison tonight, a political prisoner in a country that we were told was free, a country whose government we are still paying for. The Biden State Department is uninterested in the fate of this American citizen. In fact, of course, they support his imprisonment, and no one in the national media seems interested in his fate whatsoever. So we thought it would be worth speaking to his father, Gonzalo Lira Sr., who joins us now from Chile. Mr. Lira, thanks so much for joining us. Have you heard from your son? Do you know where he is? And do you know how he's doing?
Thank you, Tucker,
Thank you.
for the opportunity of saying what is going on with my son, Gonzalo. Today will mark the 7th full month that he's been arrested in Ukraine.
Oh,
He
wow. I
has
didn't
not
realize they had
gone
video of the
into
arrest.
trial. He's awaiting trial. He was appointed a court attorney that doesn't speak English. He's an Ukrainian attorney. Insofar as the U.S. Embassy, they haven't done a thing. Neither I nor his sister living in the USA, and I'm reading because I don't want to lose anything, neither I nor his sister living in the USA have been able to communicate with Gonzalo. He's incommunicado.
Uh-oh.
The U.S. Embassy has not answered our inquiries. The embassy in Kyiv never offered a defense attorney, never visited him, except for the first time, his court appointment last November 8th. The embassy has just burned out Gonzalo. An American citizen by birth is in jail because he was exercising his right of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
His defense,
I mean,
as I said before,
which doesn't exist
is in
in
the
former
hands of a
Soviet nations, by the way.
appointment Ukrainian attorney.
They want to prove
that
they're
doesn't
not
speak
Nazis.
any
Well,
English.
free speech would be
The
a good way to do
USA
it.
government, with its silence in the face of this scandalous incident, suggests a degree of complicity, or at least tacit approval of Gonzalo's arrest, since nothing else convincingly explains the conspicuous lack of response. Let me just read further, if I may, Tucker.
I hope you will.
Gonzalo was arrested last year on April the 15th, Good Friday, till the next Friday, 22nd, for that full week, without any charges. He was simply detained. They stole all of his equipment.
You would think the
He couldn't
community
continue
notes
working after he was released,
or
for at least
the
2 or 3
article that
weeks,
they did in
trying to
response to
obtain
this
equipment
video
to continue
would have
his
explained this
criticism
arrest.
of Zelensky Nazi regime supported by the US government, by Mr. Biden, who makes, he is making gargles, that we have to defend democracy. What democracy? Ukraine has never had democracy, let alone today with this man Zelensky. He's a well-known dictator. They were going to have elections, Tucker, and they canceled those elections. During the Vietnam War, there were elections in South Vietnam, in the middle of the war, Tucker, if you remember. I do remember, I lived those years in the USA. Let me say more. Last April 27th of this year, Gonzalo put on a web video, this time, and for the first time, Tucker, heavily criticizing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. 4 days later, the Zelensky police detains Gonzalo through that terrible, sinister Gestapo called SPU.
My thinking is that the Democratic Party establishment will try to get rid of Joe Biden and shoehorn in Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Because Kamala Harris, make no mistake about it, she's an idiot. I mean, I seriously believe that she has under 90 IQ points. I mean, she is so stupid.
Isn't it odd, Tucker, that 4 days later, after condemning Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Gonzalo is arrested? Why was he not detained earlier? When he was let go the previous year, May 22nd of last year, Gonzalo continued the same language, the same criticism against the war. He predicted from day one, practically, that Ukraine would never win a war against Russia. He also said, this is going to bleed the USA and the NATO countries, holding on for Ukraine to hold a battle with Russia, which will never be won, will never be, successful. Did the State Department, Tucker, give the green light to Zelensky to put my son in jail? This is something that it is unbelievable.
I mean, the obvious conclusion is if the U.S. government is approving and maybe even encouraging what happened to your son, a man being thrown into prison to die because he criticized the regime, if they're okay with that in Ukraine, why wouldn't they be okay with that in the United States?
Yeah.
I really don't understand. It just puzzles me. It just puzzles me also with the prompt defense of the reporter, the Wall Street Journal reporter that was detained in Russia. Well, he was really exchanging military secrets. And my goodness, the way they were defending this man, I don't even know if he's a U.S. citizen, but anyway, his name, I wrote it somewhere, totally different to Gonzalo. No one from the U.S. Embassy is defending my son. He lived in the U.S. all of his life. He's a Dartmouth graduate. I mean, he lived in the USA. He has, published Counterparts, one of these, books. He's been writing or something. He's a writer.
His book.
And the U.S. hasn't done anything. I cannot understand. If we're going to protect democracy in the world, let's start by taking out that puppet called Zelensky. And let Congress in the USA, for crying out loud, once and for all, impeach this man. He cannot continue. The U.S. is sliding down every day, Tucker. The Chinese are winning us. I mean, what kind of foreign policy are we getting into? The worst of it all is that either they don't know history, because there are a bunch of ignorance in the White House, or they don't know. I mean, Gorbachev with Bush Sr., with President George Bush Sr., Gorbachev proposed him, we are going to dissolve the Soviet Union as such, and with it, we'll dissolve the Warsaw Pact, which was our response to NATO. But give me assurance that the countries that today belong to the Soviet Union and will be independent countries will not go into NATO. Putin, the only thing was asking Tucker was not to have Ukraine enter the NATO alliance. He didn't want to be surrounded by NATO countries,
And yet,
just like
when the
John
West,
Kennedy.
when the
didn't
West
want
make
the USA
pacts of
to have
aggression,
missiles, for crying out loud, in Cuba. Putin was doing the same. The big question is,
You don't want the
what
big weapons at your
if
back
Ukraine
door.
had complied of not going into NATO force, alliance, nothing would have happened. There wouldn't have been a Russian invasion. Like you said before, the US is bleeding money, but it is costing a fortune. It's costing the military. It's costing more day by day. The whole population is getting involved now in the USA. There are constant protests now that we have the other problem with Israel. Where are we going to? When are we going to be the great nation we were?
And it's like,
Or is it too late, Tucker?
so what's even worse is through the 80s and 90s,
We
we had
have
a
to
lot of
change
proxy wars in the Middle East
the government.
where Russia was
This
funding the other
man
side and
cannot
we were funding
continue
one side.
with
and
this policy in the world.
now it's
It's
just
the
out in the
wrong
open. We'll just
policy.
straight up fund Russia's
world
enemies.
Is beginning to hate the USA because they see the USA and the sign
And that doesn't
is
mean I'm for
military
Russia,
weapons.
by the way.
War.
I'm not for Russia.
Years back, the protector of the small countries, Tucker. I lived those years. Second World War, thank God for the USA. It was England's and Europe's savior. Well, what happened to that country? This that is happening to my son is a victim of this Biden government.
He's a victim
And
of
his
international politics.
relation
Look,
with
I'm not
that
saying what he
puppet
did was right,
Zelensky. Zelensky is
but
a
being in
man
prison for 8 months,
that
7, 8
has
months.
made opponents, political opponents, disappear. Gonzalo published 2 years ago a list, I think it was 12 or 13 individuals that had disappeared. They were tortured and then, killed. And Gonzalo said, if I'm off the air for more than 24 hours, add me on the list. He's a brave man, telling the truth all along. From day one, he predicted what would happen, that Ukraine would never win a war with Russia, and that the USA and NATO countries would bleed with armaments. I mean, would support them to kingdom come. But what is the cost now? 115 billion is what I heard, at least the USA giving Ukraine. Can you imagine 115 billion in education, in health, in the USA? We have poverty. We have a high percentage of poverty, Tucker. We didn't have homeless in my years.
Pretty easy, Julian.
The best years,
It's all
in my view,
politics.
50s, 60s, and the beginning of the 70s. I lived those years, the 60s.
It looked good in the media.
America
This doesn't
was
look good in the media.
a fantastic country.
You let a right-winger Russian apologist,
I want
you get him freed.
the USA to
Nah.
come back to the
But no,
to be
we'll
the
give
savior
him
of the world,
hundreds of billions of dollars
be-
to
to
continue
be-
fighting against Russia.
the grandfather that helps, that is constantly watching out. Not the one who's making wars around the world, supporting dictators, cheap people like Zelensky. This is the worst, Tucker, believe me. I've read a lot about what's going on. I see bloggers like my son, the George Galloways, Christophorus. There's a whole bunch, Duran. I read, I get involved, and I've seen that we're going down.
Well, if you're the pedos working
are
in the
having
mainstream media, you kind of like the
terrible-
gender bendy people, right?
Policies in the USA, and this cannot continue. I want you, please, Tucker. You're a man that is heard in the USA. That is power. Information is power. You have it. Make something out of this, please. As a 80-year-old father who's really fighting for his 56-year-old son, help me. Give me a hand.
Well, I think you're helping him by what you just said, Mr. Lira, and I'm grateful to hear it, and I'm confident that when people step back and listen to what you're saying without emotion, they'll see that we've made a terrible mistake. And we're really hoping that your son is out soon, and I hope that you will keep us informed about what the State Department does. I hope this pushes them. Thank you.
You'll hear people say the news is full of lies.
Kennedy's motorcade.
239 people. The death of Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay, so I was going to play what I thought was the Owen Schroyer video, but I just realized that that was an advertisement for Tucker Carlson's new streaming service that he's charging subscriptions for. And I would actually be ready to just whip out my credit card and do that, but I'm not going to do that while I'm on live stream. So let me see what else I can fill a good 15 to 20 minutes with here. Let's see, what do we got? What else do we got on Tucker Carlson here? He's got Dana White, Kid Rock, recently. We've already done the Alex Jones. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's one from 3 weeks ago with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's check out his Kid Rock interview. Well, no, that one's a little long. Okay, let's do Dana White. It's nice and short. I'm not a big fan of Dana White, but some of you folks might be. Oh, he's got a whole new logo and everything.
Backstage, Madison Square Garden, New York City, before the fights on the 30th anniversary of UFC with the man who runs it, Dana White. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
30 years?
Yep, 30 years.
You know
How
what?
many years
Screw
in New
this. Screw this. I'm not going to do this. You know what? I promised you guys Owen Schroyer. Let's watch Owen Schroyer's return video here. Because I really wanted to play this. Not that one. What's his other account? And of course, my dog out there is. And of course, come on. Of course, the after all the stuff with Alex Jones and the talking about Owen Schroyer being banned, yeah, they gave him back his account, but they left up the imposter account that's verified. Let me go find. Sorry about all the noise in the background. Sounds like my lady is letting the dog out. No, these are all old. I know he shared a video of him eating eggs. It was at the beginning of the Viva Barnes on Sunday. And I'm trying to find that video. It came to mind. I'm like, man, that'd be a good thing to return with, or to show instead of his. And yeah, there's nothing. Let's see, Owen. Wow, I can't find it now. Wow. Okay, well, oh, there it is. Found it. So yeah, if you haven't seen this, let's watch this one. Share screen.
So fantastic. Well, it's great to be back. I gotta tell.
So we're talking about one political prisoner, Gonzalo Lira, and it's important to know that we still have political prisoners right here on American soil. Our government has heavily handed prosecuted defendants for the January 6th. And look, definitely, I've always said, if you were one of the violent ones who decided to strike cops unprovoked, now granted, if the cops, definitely there were a few videos where the cops were showing doing some pretty crooked stuff, and attacking old ladies and throwing them down the steps. But again, the people that were prosecuted for the violence, they deserve their sentence. They deserve to do time. But when you have people, such as the Proud Boys, I'm trying to remember his name, doing 17 years, right? Doing 17 years and was not even in the Capitol that day. When you have Owen Schroyer here, ultimately given, 2 months, but, served 47 days, I believe it was, wasn't in the Capitol. He was sentenced because he went on TV and told people to be upset. We have political prisoners right here at home. And I really, like I said, I may do another bonus stream sometime over the next week where I cover some more of the Owen Schroyer stuff. I could pull up his InfoWars show. I could, subscribe to this Tucker Carlson thing and pull this up. But, it's important to see the guy in this state, now that he's out of prison, he's grown his beard out a little more. I mean, he already had the beard, but, definitely in prison, it's a little harder to stay groomed. And, it was a rough time. And he mentions how rough of a time it was and what was going on in his spirit. So let's watch this video.
Well, it's great to be back. I gotta tell you, had a big steak dinner last night. Fantastic. Had some homemade cookies, chocolate chip. Also fantastic. Slept in my own bed. Man, was that great. And just feeling really rejuvenated here. My first day back at home. Even was able to pop in over at InfoWars and see the crew and do a segment of the War Room. Went on Alex Jones' show yesterday. A lot of moving parts. And really, I'm just hitting the ground running. In fact, next week, I've already got a couple things lined up that I'm really...
Okay, so yeah, I'm sure, hitting the ground running, that's important, right? So when you've been essentially, in most of his days in the jail, was in solitary. So when you don't get to speak to a whole lot of people, except maybe a prison guard, and that's only when they're bringing you your food or taking you out for your, I think he said 30 to 45 minutes of exercise a day. And then you're thrown back in the hole where you just get to sit in solitary by yourself with your own thoughts. You want to talk, right? You want to hit the ground running. You want to do things. You want to experience life again. Again, I've only been in jail once. And it was in a holding cell. I never was convicted of a crime. So the idea now that I'm doing this show, that I'm essentially doing the same thing Owen Schroyer was found guilty of, going on in front of a camera to the internet, to an audience, and saying, hey, your government's up to shady stuff. You should exercise your First Amendment rights. It's now dangerous. People go to jail for that. Owen Schroyer went to jail for that.
Really excited about. I'm going to be going on with Tucker Carlson.
I couldn't imagine.
Next week.
I couldn't imagine.
I'm going to be going on with Tim Pool, hopefully at the end of next week. But I'm also really excited for Monday.
So be on the lookout. Thursday or Friday, seeing Owen Schroyer on Tim Pool.
Hosting the InfoWars War Room from 3 to 6 p.m. every day, where we're going to have a new show link up, owenschroyer.show. So a little easier to remember than perhaps the band.video/war room. But either way, a lot of big things coming. and I'm still just taking time to enjoy life this weekend. But with such a busy week ahead with Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and Tim Pool, and then my own hosting duties, plus a bunch of other stuff dealing with legal stuff and probation, just a lot of busy stuff coming as I get free from jail. So I'm going to need to have my strength. And what better way to get my strength back than to slonk? We're going to go with 7 raw eggs today. The glass is full, so
A little more than
I'm
half
gonna
a
need my
dozen
strength
here.
back. I haven't been able to slonk eggs in jail, so let's get it going.
You should have added some milk and vodka. Then he could be like Camelot 331. Oh wait, Camelot 331 is
Already
still
feeling
banned
stronger.
from Twitter,
Let's go.
and Owen's not. So, all right. So that was that. He's in good spirits. He's ready to get back to his life. Oh, we got comments. Hey, Shut Up I Can Cook's over there in the YouTube chat. Cheers and welcome, Cookie. Anyway, so I'm probably going to be wrapping up here. I intended for this to be a short stream. Like I said, I was just kind of waiting. Uh-oh. Yeah, so yeah, I'm on Owen Schroyer. Here, let me go ahead and stop sharing and get back. Okay. So yeah, I'm probably going to wrap up. This was just a short stream to kill a little bit of time. And cover that Gonzalo Lira stuff, and cover what essentially, in my opinion, is the political prosecutions, not only in Ukraine but also here in the United States of America. And kind of welcome back Owen Schroyer and definitely Gonzalo Lira. Whether you liked him or not, as Coach Red Pill, doing sort of manosphere content and being sort of an asshole on the internet, being over in Ukraine, reporting on the conditions of their country, and, being critical of his government, that's an important First Amendment right here in America that they don't have in other countries. And even if Owen Schroyer can be found guilty of incitement by using his First Amendment. And let's be honest, that's why they gave him a 60-day sentence, right? Because by the time you can get an appeal, by the time you can get that through Washington, D.C. into an appeals process, Owen Schroyer's already done his time. So there's nothing to appeal. You've already been sentenced. You've already went through the process. You've already had your life drug out. It's dangerous, folks. But keep your head up, because there's a lot of content to be made, a lot of things to talk about. And definitely with the election coming up, there will be shenanigans. There's already shenanigans. We know about all the Trump prosecutions. All the court cases going around, trying to keep Trump off the ballot. All the shenanigans of the Democrat Party, excuse me. The Democrat Party basically canceling their primary in Florida. They really don't want an opposition to their agenda. We're like 3 steps away from the DNC just coronating the next president. If they can keep Trump off the ballot, and they can invalidate any other candidate from the primary process, or wait till the primary's over and then invalidate Trump. But, you have Bobby Kennedy there as sort of an insurance policy. I mean, we're facing a crossroads here. We have to be able to criticize our politicians and our government. Anyway, so yeah, thank you. I'm going to head to the gym to get a little upper body workout, try to continue to lose weight until whenever this medical thing happens in my life, which was supposed to be, a couple days ago, still hasn't happened. It's looking like it might be next week sometime. So we may wind up having a bonus stream. I doubt it, because it's looking like it might be Wednesday, and I'm going to stream Wednesday anyway, so there's no point. I did want to kind of mention there was a short conversation I had with Talk with Sally. So yeah, I had a short conversation with Sally in the chat of her channel the other night, and she kind of mentioned that the normal time on Friday was going to be unavailable for her. She has a couple primary commitments. So I think the plan is to move the JFK documentary to Saturday. And so what I'll do is at 6 p.m. Central, I'll do my show for an hour. And then once that's over, I'll take about a 15-minute break, try to cram some food down my gullet, and make the link for the next show. And I think we're looking at maybe about a half hour late, somewhere around 7:30 Central. That'd be 6:30 Mountain. I say Mountain Time because that's where Sally's from. So we're looking at that potential for Saturday. And again, tomorrow, right here, 6 p.m. Central. Tomorrow, we'll be doing the normal episode of Mild's Culture Plate. I will be drinking whiskey then, so please tune into that. As always, like, share, subscribe, watch another video if you're new here. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Outlast the haters. Don't get any on you. And if you do, rub it in real good. Catch you next time on Mild's Culture Plate, everybody. Have a good one.